Happy Tuesday, everybody. Of course, I know some of you will be watching this later, but it's being broadcast right now. It's Tuesday afternoon, October 24th, and I hope you're having a great Tuesday. Thank you so much for giving me 22 minutes of your precious time, because I know your time is your most precious resource. Today, it's part 2 of Secrets of Great Leadership, Secrets of Understanding Great Leadership. And we're going to have a crash course this afternoon, this evening, in emotional intelligence, EQ. Donna and I just got back from Chicago. Literally, I've been home for 1 hour. I cut this pretty close, and I'm so glad we are celebrating the birth in the last 10 days of 2 grandkids. So just a shout out to my new granddaughter, Sonia Finzel, who is now 10 days old, and Owen Finzel, who is 2 days old. He was born on Sunday, so we're having a blessed season. Hey, everybody, I see you coming online. Hey, Kay, shout out to you, Peter, Doug, Chrissy, a lot of folks. Hey, if you can hear me okay, would you do me a favor and just punch your little wow button and let me know that I'm coming through loud and clear? I would appreciate that. Thank you so much for coming online. Hey, I'd like to know where you're watching from. Would you mind sharing, not are you in the car, are you in the kitchen, but what state are you in, or what country are you in? Hey, thanks for all those wows that are creeping across the screen. Last 2 weeks ago, when I launched this series, not only did we have people from every time zone in America, but we had folks from Cyprus, the Philippines, Germany, and Indonesia. How cool is that? So let me know where you're watching from. Give me your state, or if you're out of the United States, the country that you're watching from. In my career in leadership, I have made a lot of mistakes. It's amazing how many mistakes I've made, but I've learned a few things, and I've learned a lot about the difference between IQ and EQ, and that's what I want to share with you today, the difference between IQ and EQ. You know, if you're recruiting somebody to join your team, no matter what you're doing, if you're recruiting people or hiring people, what matters most, IQ or EQ? Thank you, Peter. You're watching from the Garden State. I love it. What is more important, IQ or EQ? You know, the world thinks, society thinks IQ is the most important. IQ stands for intellect and your intelligence quotient. But you know, we know a lot of people in life who are total failures, who are not good at emotional intelligence, but they're really smart. I've recruited a lot of people in my 30 years. I've hired a lot of people. And I got to thinking as I was writing this chapter, what we're doing is surveying the top 10 ways to be a great leader. My 10th book, I'm so proud of this book, published by David C. Cook. It's available in hardback, Kindle, and audiobook. But as I was putting this book together and I put the outline together, I realized I love top 10 lists. And you realize the word leadership has 10 letters. And so that was just begging to be the outline for this book. So the last time we talked about the L in leadership, which stands for listen and learn. The E in leadership stands for emotional intelligence. As I was writing the chapter on emotional intelligence, I've learned a lot about that topic in the last 5 years. I was reflecting back on people I had fired, people I had let go, people I had disinvited to be a part of my team. And in every case, it's not because they weren't smart, it's not because they weren't gifted, it's not because they couldn't do a good job technically with their abilities. It was terrible EQ, emotional intelligence. Let's talk a little bit about what emotional intelligence is. Here's my definition, and this is found in the EQ chapter, which begins on page, here we go, on page 43. It's the capacity to be aware of, to control, to express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. Here's another definition that I like to use. It's the ability to know oneself as well as what others are perceiving about us. And when I thought about those people that we had to let go and disinvite and fire and move off our team. I remember one person that people would say, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells around them. I never know when they're going to explode. We tried to help these folks, but eventually sometimes you just have to move on, because we need healthy people. And emotional health is so much more important than how smart you are. One of the pieces of emotional intelligence is what we call blind spots. Hey, you got any blind spots? Man, I share about my blind spot challenges in this book. And I've had, being a C-level leader, I was a CEO for 20 years of a big international nonprofit. If you rise in leadership, people will take shots at you. And sometimes those shots hurt so much. And sometimes they're truthful. I've had people come and share very hurtful things with me that made me defensive, made me angry, crushed my spirit. But then I realized, you know what? I've got a blind spot. This is the way I'm coming across. A blind spot is just that. It's something everybody else knows about you, but you don't know about yourself. And one of the journeys to a healthy emotional intelligence is to learn about your blind spots. Hey, let me ask you if you could give me some feedback right now. Think about somebody that you work with now, or you have worked with in the past, and they had a blind spot. Would you put in your comment section what blind spot that was? What was their blind spot? In the comment line. It might be a boss, it might be a colleague, it might be a subordinate, somebody that has an annoying blind spot where you're not going to tell us who they are, but could you give us some samples of blind spots that you have observed in your journey? Let me tell you about one while I'm waiting for some of you to respond. My friend Henry Deneen, who is a wonderful man, a great friend. He's actually done his doctorate at Denver Seminary, and his dissertation was in the field of emotional intelligence, EQ. And Henry was the president of a big international nonprofit for a number of years. And he said, Hans, I used to go into meetings, and we'd have an agenda, and the first thing I would do is I'd go through the agenda and tell everybody what I thought we should do about every point. In other words, I did all the talking first. I let everybody know where I stood, and then we started the meeting. Oh my gosh, Henry told me, Hans, finally my team, as we were going through this journey of emotional intelligence, and I was asking for feedback about my leadership, my team told me, Henry, the way you run meetings, we might as well not waste our time because you've already shown your hand. You've already told me everything that there is, that all your positions. So, you need to listen first. That was a great growth, and Henry totally changed the way he did meetings. That's coming to grips with a blind spot. Peter, you said someone who has no idea how they come across, and they show little interest in what you're doing. They just talk about themselves. That's actually the illustration I use in that chapter about a person that I know well, that all they do is talk, 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 and they never listen. That's a huge blind spot. There's a reason God gave us one mouth and two ears. Anybody else have some observations about blind spots? Hello, Nancy, Levi, Reba, Doug, Carrington, thanks for joining us today. Anybody else have some illustrations of some blind spots? I'll wait for you guys to continue to comment. I know a lot of you are multitasking. I'm really grateful to my friend Mick Uclea, who runs an organization called Leadership Track, and it's spelled T-R-A-Q, Leadership Track. Okay, thank you. You said one blind spot is thinking you're the smartest person in the room. Chrissy, taking over teaching a lesson when I'm in the middle of teaching a lesson, constantly interrupting. Interrupters can be very annoying, can't they? While you're talking, they just start talking right over you. That's a huge blind spot. At the end of this broadcast, I'm going to give you some suggestions of how to lean into folks that really have a challenge with blind spots. But Mick Uclea talks about what the building blocks of emotional intelligence, the 5 building blocks of emotional intelligence. And let me just read those to you. This is on page 49. Number 1, self-perception. Do I really know my strengths and weaknesses? Huge. Number 2, self-expression. How am I relating to others as a communicator? Do other people get what I'm trying to say to them? Am I clear in my communication? Number 3, interpersonal. And this is the interpersonal skills. How well do I get along with the people I work with? Do I have good people skills? All through the years as I've hired people, as the years went on, more and more, my questions as I talked to references about possibly hiring somebody were about the soft skills. Forget the hard skills. In fact, my motto is to hire for attitude, train for skill. You know, people can be trained, but if they don't have a good attitude, forget about the rest. And so when I'm interviewing a reference about a possible hire, tell me how they work with people. Tell me about their people skills. How do they act in conflict? How do they come across when they're under great pressure? That's healthy emotional intelligence. In fact, if you could picture an iceberg, above the water line, you know, an iceberg is actually a lot smaller than under the water line. Well, I like to say above the water line in an iceberg is IQ, below the water line is EQ. Question, what sunk the Titanic? What was below the water line? And what's below the water line, emotional intelligence has sunk many a career. People not willing to grow and to get healthy and to be healthy. So that's how I come across as a person. Number 4, decision making. These are the 5 building blocks of emotional intelligence. Do I make decisions for the good of the team, or are my decisions selfish? Do I make decisions in a timely manner, or do I linger too long? I have a good friend that works in China, and he works for a person who will never make any decisions. And he just wrote me an email this week, and he said, this person, of course I won't mention his name, hasn't changed after 5 years. I can never pin him down. He always wants to keep his options open. So at the end of every meeting, all we have is Jell-O on the wall. That's a blind spot. Yeah, even if you're in the Myers-Briggs, if you're a P, which is perceptive, or these are people that are not the J's like me, decisive, judgmental, even if you don't naturally tend to make decisions quickly, you have to make decisions for the sake of the team. And number 5, stress management. How do I act when I'm under a lot of pressure? It comes out, is what comes out a bad version of me that is off-putting? The person I told you about, one of the people I had to fire, that was a painful fire because this person was so gifted and talented, but the thing was, people felt like they were walking on eggshells, and they never knew when this person would explode. And when they exploded in the hallway, it was not a pretty sight. Emotional intelligence. Well, do you want to grow your EQ? I'm sure you do. Do you have the courage? Are you up to facing your flaws? I'm a big fan of John Ortberg. He's a pastor out on the West Coast, and he talks about truth tellers. The way to get to lean into our blind spots is to have some truth tellers in our life. John wrote a book called Everybody's Normal Till You Get to Know Them. I love that. What a great title for a book. And John says, every one of us needs a few people to tell us the truth about our hearts and souls. We all have weak spots and blind spots that we cannot navigate on our own. We need someone to remind us of our deepest aspirations and values. We need someone to warn us when we may be getting off track. We need someone to help us question our motives and examine our consciences. We need someone to perform spiritual surgery on us when our hearts get hard and our vision gets dim. We need a few truth tellers. Do you have any truth tellers in your life? I'm thankful I'm married to a truth teller, and if you have a spouse and you have a healthy marriage, then that is a person that can be honest with you. But sometimes there's not enough truth telling going on within an actual marriage. Somewhere along the line, you need someone to tell you how you're really coming across. I had an experience with somebody that came into my office about 6 years ago, and he was a truth teller. He was a C-level person that worked for me. And this is a vulnerable moment. I'm going to share with you what he said. I had kind of lost my passion for that position, and I needed to move on, but I was hanging on for all the wrong reasons. And he said, Hans, we need a leader who's all in or all gone. That's all they said. But they knew I wasn't really all in anymore. And he was basically saying, you know, the stakes are too high. There's too much at stake in our future. If you're not fully inflamed and passionate about what we're doing, maybe you need to move on and let us get a leader who is. That's truth telling. It's powerful. Well, let me give you, if you go into the chapter of the book, you'll find a number of resources in the book, and I have a list of 6 books that are really great resources on emotional intelligence, and I highly recommend those to you. I won't take the time to go over them. Well, what I'd like to do at this point is go over a few action points, and then if any of you have questions about emotional intelligence, would you start writing them down now, because I'm going to watch what you're commenting on here, and if you have some questions, I'm going to have a couple of minutes at the end. I can answer any questions you might have. So here's some action points. At the end of every chapter in this book, I've made this book, I've designed it as a great book for discussions to read as a leadership team, and I have 4 action items and discussion questions at the end of every chapter of the 10 chapters. And it's a great group exercise. So here are the 4 action steps for this topic of emotional intelligence. Take the free EQ quiz at the end in this chapter. And this EQ quiz is from Mick Uclea's website at leadershiptrack.com. You can just go to leadershiptrack.com, and that's spelled TRAQ, and you'll be able to see that leadership quiz. It's kind of cool because you take the quiz and it tells you, yeah, what is your score in your emotional intelligence? Pretty cool. Number 2, another good action point, read a good book on emotional intelligence. That would be great. It's a really hot, important topic. And let me say again, your soft skills are so much more important than your hard skills when it comes to success in leadership and, frankly, in life. You know, they've done a lot of studies about successful leaders, and they found that 90% of success in leadership is about soft skills, about being able to get along with people and to work well with people and to be a healthy person. If you know the name Patrick Lencioni in his book, The Advantage, I'm a huge follower of Patrick Lencioni. And in his book, Advantage, he says the company of the future, and even today, that has the most likely success is the healthy company. A healthy company has the advantage over everybody else. And I think it's true as a leader. The healthy leader is going to be the most successful. And if you're a healthy leader, your team is going to accomplish their objectives. And isn't that really what we want as leaders? We want our people to accomplish their objectives. I believe if I help my people get what they want and what they desire, I will get what I want and what I desire. Third action step and discussion question, perform some simple evaluations of your own emotional intelligence and your teams. Now, you got to be delicate. You got to be careful in this arena. You don't want to just bombard somebody with harsh information without having the right to be a truth teller. Can I just say, next week we're going to talk about vulnerability. And I'm a big believer in Brene Brown and the power of being courageous and being vulnerable. We'll talk about that in the next session. But an important principle in that arena and that topic is people have to earn the right to be a truth teller in your life. You just can't let everybody speak the truth. But I have some great ways that you as a team can talk about evaluating and listening and learning about some of your blind spots. And number 4, the last action step and discussion question is listen to one of my podcasts. If you go to hansfinzel.com, last week somebody asked me how to spell Hans Finzel, who was on this broadcast. I thought, well, if you're on this broadcast, don't you know how to spell Hans Finzel? But it's HANSFINZEL, hansfinzel.com. And go to, I have 2 podcasts. Go to the podcast page. It's podcast page, episode 31 and 42. 2 great interviews with Henry Deneen, and you can listen to those. They're about a half hour long in your car. So you can go to hansfinzel.com/32 or hansfinzel.com/31 or /42 and listen to those podcasts. So those are some examples of some ways that you can put some meat on this bone. I'm looking to see if anybody's asked any questions, and I don't think any have. Hey, Andrew Scott, great to have you on the call. Tom Schick, got Cheryl Ginter, got all kinds of great. Hey, Jedi, you must have joined on the train. I know you're on Amtrak going across the country. You must have got a signal. Well, listen, we're just about out of time. Let me give you a call to action. Join me 2 weeks from now, November 7th at 5:30 p.m., same time slot, 2 weeks from right now. And for the A in leadership, LEA, the A in leadership stands for accessibility. And today's leaders, especially if you're working with millennials, you've got to be accessible and vulnerable. So join me in 2 weeks. In case you don't know, a lot of people don't know, you can watch these broadcasts later. Would you do me a favor right now? Would you tag somebody that you would like to watch this live broadcast? Because it will be on my website forever now, and so you don't have to watch it live to be able to watch it. Would you share it with somebody, tag somebody that you think might benefit from watching this? Number 2, grab the book and enjoy it, and write me at hansfinzel.com if you have any questions. And if you want to sign up for my periodic emails, you can also sign up for them at hansfinzel.com. Thank you so much for giving me your precious time today. See you in 2 weeks, and keep taking your leadership to the next level.